All right, greatest common factor again here, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're seeing different kinds, and that's the reason why we're doing this. Okay, we have different time, different formats now, but we're still trying to find the greatest common factor here. So now we have question number 8, which is a to the third plus 5a to the second plus 3a plus 15. All right, now we got 4 terms. Now the first question, the first thing that you always got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to find out, do I have anything in common for all the terms, for all the expression that you have here? Do you have anything in common for all 4? No. Okay? In terms of numbers, the coefficients, no. In terms of the variables, no. Now, when you're dealing with such a problem and you have 4 terms, let me, tell you something that you can always think about, especially when you have 4 terms. You're going to have to think about how can I group, these terms into 2 groups of 2 and 2. So you're going to have to split them into 2 groups, and we call this one factoring by grouping, which is under greatest common factor. Okay? So we call it factoring by grouping, but which is still under this one. Okay? So factoring by grouping, okay, which is still under this one. Okay? So now, how do we group them? So now you got to be, you got to foresee what you have to do. That means if you put them into 2, they have to be able to be factored out for the greatest common factor. So when you look at these 2, so I can split it up into here. Why? Because I see that I have something in common for these 2, and I see that, I have something in common with these 2 as well. So what do I have in common for this one here? Remember, for the numbers, for the coefficient, this one is a 1, this one is a 5. So basically nothing or 1, if you want to say claim it. So that's 1, but we don't need to put the 1. And then what else do we have in common for these 2? We have A, right? Because is the A family. But the greatest common factor, you guys remember, is what? The one with the smallest power. A3, A2, so it's going to be A2, the one with the smallest power. So A2, so that means we're going to divide both terms by A2 and A2. And A3 divided by A2 is going to give us what? A. Plus, now 5 divided by 1 is 5, and then AA out. See how we just did this? Simple as that. Now we go here. Plus, what do we have in common here? 3, obviously. This one, you can see it. So this one is a 3, so you divide by 3 and 3, and then you end up with A plus 5. Okay? Now, after you do that, now you can clearly see that you have something in common for these 2. A plus 5, A plus 5. And now you end up with A plus 5, which is the common factor. And then whatever you have in front, you pick them out, and then you put them together. The A to the second. So you have the A to the second, you have the 3. Those are the 2 that are the common, the common factor, the common factors, and then you pull them out and you put them together as well. So this is how you solve for such a problem. Okay? Now, this is the leading, factor for everything that we're going to be doing. So now number 9, 4x squared minus 20 minus 3xy plus 15y. So again, we have 4 terms here, but as you guys can see, if you take all of them at once, there is nothing in common for all of them at once. Okay? And that's what, makes us to begin to think, what do we have to do? And then in this case, we have 4 of them, you got to group them as well. And they have to be careful because sometimes if you group them like that, you split them up in here in half, it may not work out. So you have to be careful. So in this case, if we split it up, do we have anything in common for these 2? Yeah, we can do that, okay? So what do we have in common for 4x minus 20? It's going to give us 4. So this one is a 4. All right, only, so we divide both of them by 4 and 4. 4 by 4 out, so we have only x left. Minus 20 divided by 4 is what, 5? Then we're done. Now when it comes to this one here, what do we have in common for these 2? So we have 3 out, and then also y. A lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, when we have a negative sign in front for these 2, it's always better to pull out the negative sign with you when you're doing that. So instead of pulling out positive 3, it's better to pull out negative 3. So it's negative 3, and then you have y, so it's negative 3y. So basically, you're dividing this by negative 3y and dividing this by negative 3y. So negative divided by negative will give us a positive. 3 divided by 3, out. X is by itself, so you didn't use it. You bring it down. Y out, and then you only have X left. Okay, you see how we're doing this systematically, like, a logic behind it. Now, when it comes to this, a positive by negative is what? Negative. So it's negative 5, and then y out, and that's it. Now, do we have something in common? Because after doing this, if you don't have something in common like this one, ladies and gentlemen, go back and check it and see where the mistake belongs to. So this is equal to what? X minus 5. Then you have 4 minus 3y. And then you are done for this one also. Okay? Now let's go with question number 10. M to the third power n minus t minus m squared plus mnt. So now we have 4 terms also over here. The first thing you got to do is to find out if you have anything in common for all 4 together. If you don't, that's when you begin to think, not to panic, but to think like, what should I do? Now you have 4 terms, always think about factoring by grouping if you have nothing else to pull out. So factoring by grouping, the question is, if you split this one up in the middle here, do you have something in common for these 2 here? No. Do you have something in common here? M. But the thing is, you have to be very careful and see if that will help you, which one will help you better. So that means what? Sometimes you're going to have to move terms around. So it's not always squeaky clean where you just come, you split in the middle, you do your work, and everything is all good. No. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. And then you got to think, is there anything that I can put, do I have 2 other terms that I can pair together that would make my life a lot easier? That's what all this is all about. So now let's go down here and see. So now I see that instead of putting these 2 together, I can put these 2 together. Because I have M3 and M2 there that I can work out. So I have T and T here that I can pull out. You see how this one works? So you can rewrite it if you want to. But if you work with your thing, you straightforward, you're good, you can. So let's rewrite in this case. So M3 and minus M squared. Then you have minus T if you want to. And then you can put this one. Or you can have M and T minus T. Because of the negative sign, you can just move this one to the last part. So that would make your life a lot easier. So now you can split in 2. So what do you have in common now? So I have M squared in common. So when I take M squared out, what do I have left? M third divided by M squared is M. And then N down because you didn't use it. Minus M squared divided by M squared is 1. And then this one, you're done with it. Now you go down there and then you see what do you have in common for these 2? T. So it's plus T out. What do I have left? Mn. If you divide that by T, or if you pull out T, you only have Mn left. And then T divided by T, negative T divided by T is negative 1. What do we see? What do we see here? Right? Mn minus 1, Mn minus 1. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to be patient. You got to work things out. You become an expert, now you can run. So what do you have in common? You have these 2 in common now. So it's M n minus 1 as a common factor, and then M squared plus T, which is the other factor. And then you are done. Okay? Now, the last one here, question number 11. So you have 28a squared, okay, m minus 15b plus 12bm minus 35a squared. So same thing here, you look at it and then you say to yourself, okay, so if I split up in the middle, am I going to be able to factor it by greatest common factor and do my work? And then sometimes just like, no, I cannot. So I have to, work things out when I can shift the things out. It could be that the first and the last can be put together, like in this case, for example. So you just say, you know what, I have 28 a squared m minus 35 a squared, okay? Then plus, I have 12bm minus 15b. okay? Then now I can split up over here. Because I know a squared, I can put them together. And then 28 and 35, is there anything in common that I can pull out here? Is there any number that can go into these two together? 28 and 35? Okay, so 7, for example. So 7a squared out. So when you divide 28 by 7, you got 4. And then a squared divided by a squared crossed out, you only have m left. Then minus 35 divided by 7, which is 5. And then a squared divided by a squared, nothing left. Okay? Now I'm just going a little faster here, knowing how you guys divide and do all of these beautiful things. So now here, what do I have in common over here? So for 12 and 15, what do I have in common? Okay, I got 3 in common, right? And then I have b and b also. So it's going to be plus 3b. And then 12 divided by 3 is what? Is 4. b out, m left. And then here, 3 goes into 15 5 times, and then b out. So I end up with 4 common factors here, which are 4m minus 5 as a common factor, and then times 7a squared plus 3b. And then I'm finished on this one as well. Okay? Thank you.